Hey guys, Montel here, and welcome to this edition of Let's Be Blunt with Montel. And I'm so excited to have the guest on that I have today. My guest today is a cannabis entrepreneur, a community organizer. He's also the founder of G3 Cannabis Therapy Network, which provides mindful and conscious cannabis consulting services. He's the host of the Cannabis Therapy podcast. He also founded Craft Cannabis Club and was the first POC dispensary owner in the state of Michigan. He was part of two landmark Michigan Supreme Court cases that changed the legal definition of edibles. Through education and advocacy, he's on the front lines fighting for inclusion, equity, diversity, and strives to destigmatize cannabis and make it more accessible. Earl Carruthers, thanks so much for joining us today on Let's Be Blunt with Montel, sir.
What's up, though, Montel?
What's up, my friend? You tell me, man. I mean, how did you initially become interested in cannabis?
Well, it wasn't a natural progression into cannabis. I was anti-cannabis throughout high school and college, more because of sports. I had the reefer madness mentality. I thought if I smoke weed, that I'll go crazy and start committing crimes. And sports was my main thing, and my goal was to make it to the league, and I wanted to be the best athlete that I could be. So I stood away from alcohol and cannabis, but I cracked my pelvis playing football, and I throughout college wanted to not take opioids.
Well, hold on a second before you even go. Don't go past that quickly, man. Cracking your pelvis is one of those things that a lot of people don't understand. That shit hurts, does it not?
Oh, it kills, and it's not like you could put a cast on it,
right?
I mean? So
right. Did they have to go in and wire you, or did you just had to let it heal?
Yeah, it was a heal, and actually, I cracked it my junior year in high school, going into my senior year, and they advised me to sit out for 8 months. However, if I sat out my next season, there was no guarantee that I was going to get a scholarship. So I played throughout my senior year, and then still earned a scholarship to go play in college.
Oh my God, man. I mean, you're playing hurt. I mean, really, really hurt, because every step you take, you're going to feel a little bit of pain, right?
Yeah, I was about 2 steps. I mean, I was known for speed throughout high school, and I was 2-3 steps slower throughout the entire year. So yeah, I had to just learn different angles and just kind of gut it out. And that carried throughout the whole college season, because I couldn't really take a break. So I kept playing, and never wanted to go to any type of drugs, because I thought if I got on it, I would get addicted. And I didn't want to go through the angle, but there wasn't a lot of natural solutions out there during this time either.
Right. So then did you shift over, or somebody introduce you to cannabis, or what?
Well, then after college, I ended up actually becoming a banker. Actually became a stockbroker, banker, advisor. And then I wasn't really a suit and tie type of guy, man. It was cool. I made good money, but I wanted to really start my own business. So I started to look into what kind of business that I could start. And that took me back to in college. I was like, man, there wasn't really a lot of anti-inflammatory remedies that were natural. So let me kind of create this sports anti-inflammatory pill that's good for pain relief using just natural herbs. And that led me to Googling different remedies that is anti-inflammatory. And that's when cannabis came up.
Wow. So you kind of literally found your way to cannabis through research and understanding that, it was going to have a positive medical impact on you. But I mean, I think, did you not say that the first time you actually consumed it was your girlfriend?
Yeah. So after doing the research, and then actually took at the time, in 2008, 2009, we became medical in Michigan, and people started doing courses and actually classes. So there was like a 8-week class and course on cannabis, and I took that, signed up, and that's why I actually learned that marijuana was actually called cannabis. I was like so impressed. I was like, wow, that's a nice word. Why we call it marijuana? I love the word cannabis. Then I learned about indica, sativas, and the history of cannabis, about cloning, about the legality of it, and then that's when I decided to become a medical caregiver and start growing on my own. And
gotcha. And that must have been that was a shocker to you, because when you started learning about it, you started recognizing that this is something that's been around for thousands of years, something that literally was only vilified by America in the last 100 years, and realized how crazy it was with the fact that we literally criminalized something that could have been, one of the best pain relievers known to man. We criminalized it and created an industry of addiction, right?
Yeah, and it was like as if like the apostle Paul in the Bible, when the scales fell from his eyes and he was blind, then he could see through the education. It was just like I was so blinded and I thought this one way that it was the whole stigma, the whole reefer madness mentality. And then through the education, it was just I was blinded through all the lies and all the deception. And then now I could see the truth. And then that was just like, wow. And that even got me more involved in just the history of cannabis. And then, going back to the whole war on drugs. I mean, going back to the 1930s with Harry J. Anslinger and his evil desires and agenda, and then even Nixon just amplified it even more from a racist point of view with the whole war on drugs, was AKA war on certain people and those who were against the wars.
And that was the same thing with Harry Anslinger. I mean, people don't even understand that Anslinger actually was a supporter of cannabis during prohibition for alcohol. He made several speeches where he said during his speech that marijuana would probably be a better, elixir for people, because there were a lot of elixirs and a lot of tinctures out back
Yeah.
then that had marijuana in it, and he was, or cannabis in it, and he was a supporter of it until he lost his job when prohibition was lifted. You know what I mean? And that's why he decided to make this evil. And his only reason for making it evil was because he wanted to follow suit with all the other racists who were trying to find a new, enslavement tool for people who are brown and black.
Yeah, it's like one of the greatest lies ever told. I mean, to me, second to the serpent lying to Eve and Adam that you could eat from that tree. I mean,
Right.
this whole thing about cannabis was just, and then it's so great because even the people that it targeted, it got them to believe it, that it was so bad, and we still to this day as a community are playing down our own people because of what we believe that was actually meant to target us, meant to enslave us. So yeah,
Absolutely, absolutely. And I mean, when you've referenced the Bible multiple times, but no one's willing to reference the fact that those three wise men that we claim were the three wise men. One of them showed up at the tent with Mary and showed up with something called frankincense, which is
yes,
a form of cannabis. So
yeah,
back then, people don't even understand that cannabis was routinely used, especially for women who were having babies, and especially for those babies who were a little colicky. That's
yeah.
the reason why they burn incense and frankincense inside of tents, kept the baby from coughing all the time. You know what I mean? So, if it was good enough for the baby Jesus, it should be good enough for everybody else, right?
I agree. It's always been a therapeutic remedy. It's always been that way, and that's kind of what I've led into. And you mentioned the first time me trying it. I mean, after growing cannabis for the first time, I was like, well, I guess I need to probably try this. And then uh, my girlfriend she actually hid the fact that she was a cannabis consumer until I started growing, because she thought that I would, look down upon her from because of how I was kind of straight and narrow. But yeah, she taught me how to roll it. We tried it, and the first time, I don't even think I got any kind of buzz.
Mm.
You just smoke a little bit, you wonder if you, but it wasn't really until about the third or fourth time I really felt, oh man, I do feel a different, altered mindset. So
Right. Right. And I mean, tell me a little bit about those days, those as a caregivers. You were growing it so that you could provide it for family members and friends, or what?
yeah, so in Michigan, the law was you can become a caregiver, you can grow for yourself 12 plants and possess plants and cannabis for yourself, or you can also grow up to five other people as patients. That could be your family members, it could be friends. So you can grow for them because not everybody can grow. It takes time, it takes investment, it does take a skill. You do kind of have some kind of green thumb. Um, so people will find other caregivers to help grow for them. So I grew for myself and I grew for five other people. And that allowed me to grow up to 72 plants, 12 for myself and then 60 for my other five patients. And then I was allowed to carry 2.5 ounces per person. So 2.5 for me, and then 13 or 12.5 for my patients. So I could grow 72 plants and carry 15 ounces on me at any given time underneath the Michigan caregiver rules.
And that was 15 ounces of flour, 15 ounces of raw cannabis. Well, how was that broken out?
Well, I kind of learned about this the kind of the hard way as far as what that actually meant. So I was actually the first person arrested, charged, and put in jail for the possession of edibles. Um, Yes, because after I started growing, I grew. I mean, 72 plants. You can produce a lot of cannabis. So
Sure
you
can. Yeah.
you have what is called overages, and underneath the law, it's pretty clear that a caregiver can assist a patient, and meaning you can only grow for the patient that you are assigned for. You can only carry for the patient that you're assigned for. But who you could assist could be, as long as they were a patient. So say, you were a caregiver and maybe you had a bad crop, but you still need something for your patients. I could assist your patients with all the extras that I had. And that was kind of how the natural caregiver market started here in Michigan from 2008 to around 2015, 2016, where caregivers assisting patients. So I started a delivery service after growing so much, and that delivery service picked up a lot. And however, I went out to dinner with my girlfriend, now wife, and I had got valet, and they turned my lights off. And this is, a newer car. I'm not used to turn on my lights. I usually get in; it's kind of automatic. So I get into my car. I drive for a delivery through the suburban area. I end up in Beverly Hills, not California, but there's a Beverly Hills in Michigan. I get pulled over for not having my headlights on. And this was my first experience of driving while black. Mind you, I was a banker. I had a Series 7 663. I had a very clean record, never really gotten involved with the law throughout football. I was a captain of the football team. So leadership skills, all that jazz. And I thought, that's whoever gets in trouble with the law, that's them. That doesn't happen to me. But all that went out the window. It was get out the car, took my girl out the car, searched the car. There was no probable cause. Wasn't like we were smoking. Wasn't like we were swerving or drinking. Searched the car, and what they ended up finding was my delivery bag that was in my trunk for deliveries. However, you asked me the question earlier of the 15 ounces, how much of that, that you can actually carry. Is that edibles, flowers, etc. I had 7 ounces of flour, and I have 2 dozen brownies. My wife and I end up having to go to jail for like 72 hours because they found that
What?
did not get charged. They are interrogating her, making her cry, saying I was, trying to use her. I'm a drug dealer. They want to know where the grow is, where the stash is. They impounded my car. And mind you, there was no constitutional reason to search the car. But their reason was an inventory search, which that wasn't even, a reason. So nevertheless, they found the cannabis, and I didn't get charged. I people were looking for me because I'm missing. I didn't get a phone call for 48 hours. So I ended up calling my brother. He ended up getting an attorney to come in to get both of us out. No charges. I got charged 8 months later with a felony with possession with intent to deliver because they counted each brownie as weed.
Wait a minute. Are you kidding me? They
So I had
didn't count the brownies as the content, or what the content was in there? No.
No, they counted the cocoa, the egg, the oil, everything as cannabis because again, I had seven ounces. I can carry 15 legally, and even if you're over your limit, you still have a affirmative defense. You just have to explain that it was a reasonable amount for what you would be doing. So if I was making hash oil, I may need a pound for that. So I just need to be able to explain that. So even if I was over my limit, I still have a defense. But they pretty much said I was over my limit. I was not protected by the medical marijuana law, and it counted each brownie as weed. So I went from 7 ounces to 72 ounces of cannabis.
Wow.
Yes. Those are some very expensive brownies. However,
What did they sentence you to for that?
so I end up getting charged, and I'm just, I came from Baker. I read the law. I had no intent to come in here to be some kind of sly, drug dealer per se. I had business cards, a website. I wasn't hard to find. I was legitimately see a nice opportunity to get in, quote unquote, at the ground floor and grow this to be a business that can work. So I ended up taking it, fighting it. Hired multiple different attorneys. I kept getting offered pleas. I'm like, what am I pleading to? What, possession of brownies? I mean, it says in the law that I can carry, flour and the mixture thereof. And this was, a mixture thereof, meaning I'm mixing it. But from the courts, depending on where you are in court, their interpretation was, well, it's only dry flour. It does not count any kind of mixture that you're mixing that flour into another substance. And I was like, that's bogus. So I took it to trial, and I ended up going to trial. But right before trial, when they called the witnesses, the prosecutor made a motion to deny me the right to be able to even mention the word medical marijuana. And all the evidence that was there, because those brownies were labeled, everything was labeled, like 1 gram of cannabis in each brownie. This is the net weight. So everything was even labeled. So if you counted each gram, I was way under my 15 ounces. Thought it was going to be easy peasy jury trial, call this a day. All right, I'm over. But no, they ended up, the judge ended up granting him to allow me to not use the word medical marijuana, because if I said medical marijuana, it would be as if I was getting sympathy from the jury. I was like, oh, all right. So then they blacked out all of the medical marijuana images, all the medical marijuana labels. So when I go to trial, I just look like a black man with weed. So I end up getting found guilty with possession with intent to deliver, because I did deliver, I did have intent, but it was to a medical patient.
I can't see that. That to me should have been grounds for an appeal right there. How dare they, after they've granted you the ability to deliver medical cannabis, say that you're not delivering medical cannabis? I just don't understand it.
Yeah, their logic was, well, if you're over your limit, again, this is early 2010, 2011, and it was still, granted, it's almost 10 years ago, but it was still a very anti-cannabis mentality. Right now, we have going dog years as far as in cannabis, as far as progressing the acceptance of cannabis. But even in the early medical, our attorney general was anti-cannabis. The governor didn't want the Medical Marijuana Act to pass, so they did what they did to disrupt the entire scene, right, by letting the court cases sorted out. So their logic was that if you fell out of your immunity, meaning if you fell out of the very narrow parameters of having 72 plants, 2.5 ounces per person, then you are going to be charged underneath the regular Narcotics Act. So because I was out of my limit, because they counted each brownie as weed, I was charged underneath the Narcotics Act. So yes, I had an automatic right to appeal only because I went to a trial. So at trial, they revoked my bond. Usually you go to trial if you lost. This is my first time I'm ever going to trial. My first thing on my record. Worst case scenario, I'm thinking, all right, they're going to give me probation, misdemeanor, something like that. And no, they revoked my bond and sentenced me to put me in jail right then and there. Usually you'll still be out on bond, come back in a couple weeks, get sentenced, and then you go from there. No, I didn't. My attorney didn't think, no one thought I was going to go to jail even at the end of the trial, because I had no record. This wasn't like I was a habitual person, but they, because I guess I had the balls to take this to trial, they ended up revoking my bond, put me in jail. They lost my paperwork in jail, quote unquote. And instead of me getting sentenced in 2 weeks, I got sentenced like 30 to 40 days later in jail. So my whole life was disrupted. Imagine me taking you right now, I did not planning to go to jail, taking you out of society, putting you somewhere. I had businesses to run. I had just opened up a gym at that time. I had the whole delivery service, the plants, the grow, all that stuff was just all disrupted right then and there for about a month.
How did you get through this legal process?
So, it's like a Netflix.
No, it's okay, man. It's like a Netflix story. I'm going to tell you that people are sitting at home right now waiting with bated breath to hear how you got out of this.
So I'm gonna pause there for 1 second, because while I was going, it's not like Law and Order where like you get arrested one day and then you're at trial, you're in the Supreme Court the next day, right? I was going to court for about 4 years. Okay, back and forth.
Wait a minute, but sitting in jail?
No. So when I first got charged, while I was going through all the different, I went from judicial court or district court to circuit court, many different motions and hearings, different appeals of motions. Yeah, it was a whole dragged out process. At this time, I'm still operating. Gotcha. I can talk about it now. I'm still operating because I still got to pay the bills. So I'm still operating my delivery service. And I actually ended up expanding during this time. I ended up getting so busy with delivery services. I also had a credit repair business at the time. I ended up getting an extra office to just have appointment only, like a clinic, almost like a dentist office, where it's by appointment. You can call, you can come in. I can sit down. I can show you a variety of things with very personal service. So I ended up doing that. So I had deliveries, and then I also had a clinic, ended up hiring someone to run my front desk and having someone. So I ended up having quote unquote like a dispensary, but it's more like a private collective per se. Okay. So now that's going on, and I end up expanding that, and then I get raided. So while I'm going to while I'm going to trial, go to court for this delivery case, this brownie case, we call it the brownie case. For the brownie case, I get raided for this dispensary case. And I get raided based upon a undercover officer coming into the clinic. Now the clinic, it was truly like a collective where you couldn't join unless you had to prove that you were a patient, meaning you need to show your card. You need to have your ID. You need to have proof that the state cashed your check, because the state cashed your check, that means that they approve what the doctor recommended. Because we can't call, the doctor and say, hey, did you write this script, because of HIPAA laws. So, right. But when the state cashed your check, I mean, they obviously approved it. So therefore, that's proof that you were accepted. Because you can make a fake card, you can make up fake paperwork. But if we have proof of your cash check, that allowed us to verify that you were actually a approved person. And then we had an agreement that you were joining this collective, and that this is for you. You're not going to go out and resell it. You're not going to smoke and drive. You're not going to. So we have rules. You're not going any funny business. This is not for kids. You got to be 21 years of age or older. So everything was by the book, by the law, because I wanted it to be a business. A cop came in with a fake ID, a fake patient card, a fake state cash check, signed our agreement, came in and made 4 or 5 donations for product. Nothing outrageous. No, gram here, a quarter here. And he's even caught on tape talking about how his back was hurting. He acted as a patient all the time. Then a month later after that, we got raided based upon us serving people that were outside of our 5 patients. Now, mind you, I said that we could grow for the 5 patients. We could carry for the 5 patients. But who we could assist was a patient. But the attorney general, and depending on what county you were in, it was like whatever county you were in, if that prosecutor was anti-cannabis, then they were to just raid everybody and let the courts figure it out. And that's what happened. So we had to go to court and fight how, our interpretation, that was the plain language of law, that we were serving patients.
You're fighting 2 cases at the same time.
So now I got 2 cases. So we get raided. I'm still going through. Now I got these 2 cases. And now when you get raided, they take my cars, they freeze all your assets. And my brother actually was partners with me in a credit repair business, who was also a Detroit police officer. Okay. He actually had nothing to do with the cannabis side. I was going on my own agenda on that. But he still had the credit repair business, and we were partners on that lease. And he actually went and signed a lease for me to get the other location down the hall, just because I didn't have time to sign a lease that day. Oh, because his name was on the lease, he was charged with conspiracy.
What?
And yes, he was charged with conspiracy, and he was suspended without pay from the force.
You got to be kidding me.
So I'm pretty much in the wilderness, butt naked right now. No money.
You ain't
cars
kidding.
are gone. They raided the houses. Houses meaning I had I'm not basketball money like that at the time, but I did. My parents end up going through foreclosure, so we ended up getting some money together and bought them a house for Christmas. And my name was on the title that I got for them. They raided my parents' house because my name was on it. And my mom is bipolar / schizophrenic diagnosed. They went in there, when you raid, they got ski masks, AKs, guns. She's in the bed. They put guns in her face. And I could hear it because my dad calls me. He's like, they're in the house, son. And it's like, where your son at? And it's like, your son's a drug dealer. Your son's a drug dealer. Where's he at? Where's he at? And he talked to my mom. My mom's like, no. Leave him alone. So to this day, my mom does not even answer the door because of that whole scenario. So yeah. So after that, I mean, that was fuel, man. That had me in a rage. So after all that, I go, and just like, look, I'm right here. Then they put me in jail for a couple of days and let me out. So I got, those couple cases. And then we get charged later, all of us in the clinic. It was 6 of us. My brother gets charged. I get charged. And then everybody else who was working there gets charged. So yes, I'm fighting the brownie case. And now I got to fight this dispensary case at the same time.
And I mean, now again, just by your explanation alone to me, it's clear that you were following the law. What was the attitude of the prosecutorial side of these cases, the case of the dispensary case?
The attitude was more of, You ever been like driving down the freeway or something where it's raining on one side of the road, it's not raining on the other? Uh,
Hmm.
and here in Michigan, we have what is called 8 Mile. And 8 Mile, I know people see the movies, 8 Mile, but that's a dividing line really between two different counties. One is Oakland County and one is Wayne County. Wayne County is where Detroit is. It's more of like an urban, say per se, county. And in the Wayne County, it was all good. There was, at one point in time, there was over 300 different, we call them weed shops in Wayne County. Okay. In Oakland County, there was about 100, but they all started getting raided. But we thought that we were fine because, again, we're following. I mean, you hear people getting raided because you think, all right, they're just playing games. That some of them got alligators and guns, and all right, maybe you guys are, not really trying to obey the law. You guys are just trying to use it as a guise. But then when they raided us, it was like, you know what? It didn't even matter if you were trying to follow the law. It was more of they just don't want cannabis in their area, and we're going to raid you and let the courts figure it out. So the attitude of the prosecutors depend on what county you was in. And so I was in a county that was more conservative, but I didn't have signs, and I thought I was being respectful. I wasn't flaunting. You only heard about us by word of mouth. You only heard about us on Weed Maps. You only heard about us on THC Finder. We weren't out there, with big signs saying weed's here. So the attitude was more the whole reefer madness, that weed is still a drug, and that we're just drug dealers, and marijuana is bad, and if you smoke a marijuana, you should be in jail. So they were treating marijuana as a criminal issue versus a health scenario.
Right. And so, I mean, again, now you're sitting there with two court. Is it under the same judge or in two different municipal courts?
I end up being in the same circuit court because this all happened in Oakland County. So when I got pulled over, it was Oakland County. When I end up getting raided, I was in Oakland County because I actually lived in Oakland County. So I was doing business where I lived. And I got two different court cases going on. So once I lost that trial, I still end up, was fighting this dispensary case. So I come out of jail, and my brother's trying to keep the gym and stuff together. I actually opened a gym for my brother because he had lost his job and he's having a baby. So I created I was always kind of an entrepreneur per se. And I opened up a gym for him so he can, work out. He always liked working out. He played football too. So he used that as a means of income. So he was running that, and I came out, and again, it more was trying to drown a shark. It just kind of pissed you off because you felt like you was in the right, and now you realize I got in there for the money, but I'm staying more for the movement. And that's where it's like we had to. It was almost like you just needed something higher than me was calling me to not give up and to keep fighting, and that's what I did.
So when you got convicted of the trafficking or transportation one, how long did they give you for that?
So after serving 30 days, they ended up giving me the max of probation, which was 5 years.
Okay, so you say 30 days, then you got out for that. You had a 5-year probation on you.
5 year.
Then you had to go back into a courtroom to argue the dispensary one.
Yes, and it's not like going to court is a happy place. It's a daunting.
No.
It's on the spirit, mentally. I mean, imagine I can imagine even if I've always been an entrepreneur, so I can kind of work my own schedule. But if I had a job, but how many times you got to keep going? You got to call off work. You got to go show up. All these hearings, things get canceled, reappeal, holidays. Yes, and so that case was going on for another 4 or 5 years. So that case ended up getting dismissed based upon entrapment.
Right.
Because the cop actually entrapped us. I mentioned that in Michigan, you have immunity, meaning, I'm within my limits. You really, you can't touch me per se. But if you fall outside your limits, you have what is called an affirmative defense, meaning you just got to prove that what you had was a reasonable amount. Okay. If I had 1 million pounds, I got to be able to explain that. But if I had 3, 4, or 5 pounds, I've got to explain why I have that much, whether it's for edibles or brownies, etc. I had to prove that I had a bona fide doctor-patient relationship, meaning I just didn't have some Skype call and some guy just gave me a card, but I had a relationship with the doctor who gave me my prescription. And then third, I needed to prove that it was for medical use. The third thing was hard to prove because the cop was going to take the stand and say it wasn't for medical use.
And but you had the cop on film saying he had a bad back and all that stuff, right?
Yeah, and we had paperwork, and you posed so you entrapped us from being able to defend ourselves in court of our affirmative defense. And the judge saw that. Now, I went through multiple, it wasn't as simple. I went through multiple different attorneys. Everybody wants you to take pleas. And I got there's 6 of us. It's easy for someone to, just flip or say this or say that. We all stuck together as a unit and fought this whole case for about 4 or 5 years. So we won that on entrapment, but then guess what?
No, what?
They appealed it.
What? The state appealed it, the county appealed it?
Yeah, the county appealed it. So now we got to go to court of appeals, more money. Yeah. And so then the court of appeals actually reversed the decision. So then we had to go back to circuit and refight the entire case again. So we ended up appealing that and going to the Supreme Court. Wow. The brownie case, I had a right to appeal. I appealed that. And that went to the appellate court. And the appellate court actually ruled in my favor, kind of. Meaning they said that, yes, I should have at trial been able to mention medical marijuana. I should have been able to have my affirmative defense, even though, again, I was outside of my immunity, meaning I was over my limits. But I still have what is called an affirmative defense where I can explain those three things.
But they're still claiming you're over your limit, but you truly weren't over your limit when you were talking 1 gram per brownie.
Which is why I said kinda, which was then they also in the same opinion said that anything that's not dry flower is unusable marijuana for medical patients. So meaning that there was, because of my case, made case law, it across the board that and across the entire state of Michigan, the only thing that people could consume for medical purposes was only dry flower.
Wow. So edibles were now made illegal.
And people were just like, where the hell did this opinion come? I mean, the opinion was horrendous. I mean, attorneys, everybody was just like, this has been the most horrendous opinion. And again, at this time, the appellate judges at that time, they were anti-cannabis as well. They weren't, all of this was just my first taste of political scene of what happens behind the scenes. So I had a decision. I could go back to circuit court, go about my way, have my affirmative defense, easily explain. I had a patient-doctor relationship, easily explain having 24 brownies is a reasonable amount. I eat 1 brownie a day or something like that, and that's a 60, 30-day supply. Easily explain that. It's for medical use. I never said it wasn't for medical use. I could have easily got that off my record and call this a day and be done with that. But my case would remain case law, and everybody else, meaning your grandma, if your grandmother had a 16-ounce cup of coffee and she decided to put a little tincture in there, your grandmother now is in possession of a pound. So she can get arrested and go through the same stuff that I just went through. And then, just consciously, again, something higher than me was just like, I just can't think about myself. Now it's not about me being served, but how can I be a servant to other people? And I took that to the Supreme Court. And this shit ain't cheap. Right. So I had to go to Supreme Court for 2 cases, man. Yeah, it's wild.
And then what did that finally come out as when you went to the Supreme Court?
So Supreme Court, because it got to the Supreme Court, it drawed a lot of media attention, per se. Not a lot of donations.
Everybody in the state had to be like just dangling on this decision because that means that edibles are not available.
Yeah, because you have kids. I mean, there's still kids who are consuming cannabis, but the parents don't want them to smoke it. They're using tinctures and things like that. Or there's people who don't want to consume or don't want to smoke. So to say the only thing you could use for medical purposes was a smokable dry flower was ridiculous. So even though that wasn't the intent in the law either. So it thought it was going to be an easy Supreme Court case. They were going to take it. But it ended up creating legislation. And legislation ended up passing that made up rules of how the definition of edibles or concentrates or anything that's in a liquid form is medical use, based upon me about to take it to Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court decided not to take the case because there was legislation.
Gotcha. So that was for the first trafficking case. What ended up happening with your dispensary case?
Now, the trafficking case, just so you know, we're going to pause this in a second, didn't end. Even though there's legislation.
What?
The legislation even applied retroactively, which is unheard of. Like, they knew they messed up. They created legislation that says these edibles are legal, and it's applied retroactively. So that means anyone else who caught these cases retroactively can go back and, re-appeal it. But it's not going to automatically happen. So my case didn't just end. I still had to go back to circuit court, man. I had to go back to circuit court and actually have my affirmative defense. And I had my affirmative defense. I won my affirmative defense. And then guess what? They appealed it. So
what?
They,
So they just really were trying to, if you really look at it, they were just trying to use you as an example to say, we're gonna go after you until we get you.
Yeah, they're gonna draw you out. I mean, by the grace of God, I was able to weather the storm. It's not because I, came from a lot of money. I'm just hustling as I'm going. I was still being provided for as this was going through. I wasn't, didn't have a bunch of stuff saved. They took everything. They froze everything. I never got my cars back because of asset forfeiture laws. You are guilty until you're proven innocent as far as your asset stuff. That's what's called policing for profit. They can go through with low hanging fruit, go for the cannabis people, and end up getting their cars, getting their houses, getting anything that was paid off. And then, you end up taking a plea and you can't get your stuff back. And then they end up selling that in auctions. I mean, just the county alone, I believe, made like over $6 million in asset forfeitures, and that went to them getting new tanks and big guns and whatever budgets it was. So it's a big money game. So I'm fighting against something I didn't know it was this huge. So that's that. So I'm still fighting that. That went to appeals, and then now I'm fighting the appeal here at the entrapment case, and then now they actually reversed that and said that the judge was wrong and dismissing it based upon entrapment. And their reasoning was that because that entrapment is really trying to trap someone into doing something that they were not already going to do. And they were saying that we were already going to serve cannabis, so therefore he didn't entrap us in serving cannabis. I was like, wait a minute. Yes, but we were only going to serve a patient. It wasn't like we was on the street or just serving anybody walking in. So yeah, that went back to that. So we had to appeal that to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court ended up not taking that case because they have the right to take whatever cases they want. They ended up not taking that case. So we had to go back to circuit court, refight the whole case. They didn't want to reopen this case. No, this is going on 2012 to 2018, like 6 years. Yeah, so they did not want to have reopened this entire case. So they ended up offering a deal to where I would kind of plead no contest and take like a ticket, and everybody else will be able to kind of walk away from this. And actually it was my brother and I, and it was tough because it was just like my brother had nothing to do with this, man. His just name was on the lease, but because we're brothers, they thought we were these kingpins. And I'm like, dog, he's a cop. We got financial backgrounds. We clean records. Like we got in this for the entrepreneur side. It wasn't, as if we were habitual criminals. So anyways, I ended up taking that for the greater sense of dragging. I mean, everyone else was getting tired too. I mean, it was they didn't want to go through the whole thing. People, I mean, in 6 years, I mean, you could have had a baby by now.
Sure.
Kids would have ended up in like elementary school by now. So it was just like, it was daunting. So I ended up taking that. And then that ended. And then I ended up out serving, going back to the other case. I ended up over serving my probation. Now, mind you, I got the conviction overturned. I went back to have my affirmative defense. They still did not take me off probation this entire time. So I'm going testing every single day. I can't consume cannabis every single day. I got to go to these classes. They're calling me by probation officer, acting like, they're the world's savior and you're just a piece of shit. Every single day I got to hear this. And then, so I end up out serving my sentence. So technically now after they appealed it, the court of appeal decided not to take the appeal of me winning my affirmative defense. They actually ruled that I won it cleanly. So now I have my affirmative defense and now I can have my new trial. The ironic thing is I was the first case my attorney ever had to where if I went to trial, there's nothing that they could do to me because I already was sentenced. I already served by probation. So technically, what I got to lose? Let's go to trial. I can go in there butt naked and be like, let's go.
Right. And did you do that?
So I'm going to trial.
Go butt naked.
No, I didn't go butt naked. So I'm like, yeah, we're going to trial. I'm like, true. I went through all this. We're going to trial. I'm using my rights. Going to trial. The day before the trial, they ended up dismissing the whole case, man. They ended up dismissing the whole thing. And now we went from medical at this time too to recreational. So this is like 2016. We went recreational. So it even went adult use that clearly talked about edibles. And I'm still fighting this medical case. So yeah, it ended up getting dismissed. And yeah. And I still never got anything back from that case as far as assets, forfeitures, all that jazz. So, and then they end up just now taking that felony off my record. So, yeah.
That's insane. And now, can you sue the state to be recompensated or compensated for what you've lost, or you just want to stop?
It was a conversation that I could do a civil lawsuit, but again, it was been more money. It wasn't like attorney was going to try to do this pro bono per se. So it was going to be more money. And honestly, I was tired of going to court, man. This was 2010 to 2018. That I was going through this. So yeah. So in the meantime, I kept operating, and
You're still able to run your businesses anyway.
yeah. Oh man, shoot. A little caveat to this scenario. It's drawing back memories. I actually tried to block this whole thing scenario out and just keep moving my life. But nevertheless, I end up because I kept fighting this case. It was ironically, I told you I had a credit repair business, and I had helped someone get a mortgage, and I used my company as a verification of employment for that person.
Mm-hmm.
True, I did that. And the person ended up, not paying the mortgage, and it ended up being this big thing in this whole complex where people were getting loans and not paying it back. I got tight in that just because my company was on a VOE, but nothing really came about it. But as I was fighting these cases, one of the attorneys that I had that I ended up not hiring or firing and getting another one said, you know what? There could be a federal case that they're going to bring up against you for wire fraud, for conspiracy, for wire fraud. If you take pleas, they could do away with the federal case. But this conversation goes nowhere outside this room. And if anything happens, everyone's going to deny it. So I'm like, what are you talking about? No way, bro. Man, I end up getting picked up by the feds, man, for a conspiracy for wire fraud based upon that verification employment of all the things. And I end up going to jail for a year for that.
What?
For a year.
What?
For a year for that, because I couldn't. I technically, yes, I did it. I did allow him for, but I'm sure there's a lot worse things that but yeah, I couldn't. You can't fight conspiracy. Conspiracy. How do you? it could be a phone call, and now you got conspiracy because you took a phone call from a guy. So I end up being guilty on that. Or I took the plea on that because I was going to fight that. I was fighting 3 cases at one time.
I just one of them from jail.
Yeah.
That's insane, man. Well, how's life now? What's been happening in the last 3 years?
So, so I ended up going to jail until really after the dispensary case, after that case. And again, I was still in the cannabis business. I still thought, there was an opportunity. I still was running the collective. The state had came in and they were licensing now. So before it was like just natural, organic, as long as you had a caregiver license, you could operate. Now the state was coming in and saying, now you can get a state medical license. And I was like, well, bet I'm going for the state medical license. And I knew, I got the court cases going on. I'm not going to be the best face of the company here. And I never had any partners, but I ended up getting attorneys together, scrapping my package together to apply to the state. First I had to get my city license. The city came in and started doing licensings. Ended up getting my city license because the rules weren't no big background checks. But the state came in and they said you got to have $300,000 clean in an account, proven for the last 2 years, which knocked out a lot of people. And then you also got to have a clean background for the last 10 years. That knocked out a lot of people. And also there was the financial, there was a criminal, and there was one more. I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank, but those 2 knocked out a lot. But I ended up partnering with a retired tax accountant for Ford, who had the money in his tax account. So I partnered with him. I was going to own a lease. I was going to be a highly paid employee up until the time that I could become a official person on paper. And all this was going to be up front. But he was going to be more of the applicant. Right. So we ended up going to the board, getting our license heard, and getting there was no easy feat. Like no one could get there. Like it cost over $100,000 to even get to the board throughout fighting these cases, get here, partner with him. I'm like, this is going to happen. We're going to get this license. And then they could be like, hold this coveted license, like MedMen, people come in here. Some people want to buy you out. You about a couple million. We end up getting denied because there was a board, and the board can deny you not because of you were disqualified, but for anything such as character. They denied my applicant because he had a 21-year-old domestic dispute that he did not disclose on his application. Had nothing to do with being disqualified, because now it's even more political. So then, he's done with it. And now I'm operating temporarily underneath a city license. But now the state just denied me. It's like, what do you do? Now I'm on a radar. I got to shut down. But this is my bread and butter. So I ended up having to, and I was at the I was the 1 yard line, man. This is the Seahawks, Patriots, 1 yard line, hand off to Lynch, get into the end zone, we win a Super Bowl. It dropped back, throw a pass, picked off, you lose the Super Bowl, you're at the 1 yard line. Now Tom Brady gets the Super Bowl ring. I felt like Russell Wilson, man.
Wow.
I was at the 1 yard line, like I'm finally going to get over this hump. I'm going to get to the next level, all right, of entrepreneurship with this license, and then the sky's the limit. I can partner with people. Now you're talking about millions and not these couple thousand I'm just trying to hustle and do all this stuff with. And I end up having to shut down, end up having to transfer my city license for really a couple dollars. And I reinvented myself, as that's where the private club came in.
And that was the motivation behind creating the G3 Cannabis Therapy Network, right?
Yeah. So G3 actually was the name. It was called Green Greener Grow. G3 was the original name of the first place we got rated. So it's called Green Greener Grow. I was just playing around with the name because I was just growing. I didn't really mean to start a collective and start a delivery service. I just called, I got to start a LLC. I just went Green Greener Grow. So just playing with the name. But once things started, like branding, and once we got rated, I still needed to reopen. So I renamed it G3. So then G3 became more, but then once the city came into license, I had 2 locations. G3 did not fit the city license zoning, but the other location, Taste Buds, did. So I had to turn G3 into more of an educational place and more to a clinic. And then I would take the people from there and I'll refer them over to Taste Buds, which was the place that was actually going to get the license. So I kept that G3 pivoted to educational and clinic place. So I had a doctor come in, Dr. Days, people can come in. Then after you get your card and all that stuff, you need to get cannabis. We refer you over to Taste Buds.
And now, but you did not get the state license, or did you get a state license?
No. So then Taste Buds had to shut that down. But still education. I'm not touching the plant. I kept that along. So Cannabis Therapy Network I always saw cannabis as a therapeutic remedy. And I always felt like we could help people have more comfortable experiences and avoid those bad experiences, such as over-consuming. Everybody has a horrible story about eating too much of a brownie, or the whole stigma. Maybe your mom and dad didn't, they still have the reefer madness like I did. So we would educate people and do YouTube series and do podcasts on teaching people how to use cannabis from a therapeutic point of view comfortably. So that was more of the umbrella company of all the different brands. So through that, then the club came in because I was reading the recreational law after I lost the Super Bowl here of licensing. Picked myself up. I did cry for a little woohoo, man, it sucks, but it's still, what can I do? Not what I can't do. What can I do? How can I participate in this industry? And the recreational law here says that a person 21 years of age or older can consume in a private residence, and people can gather for cannabis reasons in a private residence. Well, what's a private residence? That's why I opened up a private club for like-minded people to come together to network, share resources, and make connections. Because the other thing I felt like, if I was part of a community and not just by myself, that things would have been different when I went for that license. So I do plan on going back to get a recreational license now, not a medical, because the recreational rule is a little bit different, but I want to do it now with a greater group of people around me, with a bigger network. So that's why I was a Cannabis Therapy Network, and the private club is a local place to meet people, to make those connections. Now there's attorneys here, there's doctors here, there's plumbers here, there's musicians here, but it's an elegant upscale place where people can feel comfortable to be themselves with cannabis. So
and you can consume on location.
I'm sorry?
Can you consume on location? I don't know the laws of Michigan. Can you consume on location?
We do not promote the consumption of cannabis, but there is a consumption license that the state just created. So now we're going through the consumption. The plan is to get a consumption lounge license or a private event license. So we're going to use the club space. Now that's kind of, I was looking where the ball's going, not where the ball's at. So I was going to use this space as we built the clientele now about cannabis, even though we're not selling stuff and we're not promoting the consumption. We're still doing events that is like cannabis theme. We got comedy shows, concerts. We have country shows. We have burlesque shows. We have DJs, but everyone's more still in a cannabis scene, just not necessarily with cannabis until we eventually get that license.
So they can consume cannabis before they walk in the door.
Yeah. Yeah, you can consume, but we have, giveaways. Now, another thing about the law too here that we could gift cannabis. So it's a membership-based private. So in a recreational law, what's truly gifting? Like you have to give it without any kind of value getting back. So I can't really give you, a gram and you give me $20. That's not a gift, right? But at Christmas, I could give you 2 ounces, and that's a legal transaction. So as a member of the club, at times we do give out cannabis for free. As a privilege of being a member in the club.
Gotcha. So, and what other services does the club offer?
So we also, through classes on how to grow. So that's where the other brand, homegrown weed started. I felt like a lot of the industry was more targeted towards big commercial grows. 10,000. If you go to CannaCon or MJ Biz shows, they were, all these layouts and all these architects for 10,000 plants, 5,000 plants, 20,000 plants. But what about someone just want to grow four plants? A lot of states that are now becoming legalized, you can grow up to 4 to 12 plants in your home. But where can you go to get information on how to grow? Yes, you can go to YouTube and watch, thousands of different areas. Everybody's got different opinions. They think, my penis is bigger than your penis. I grow better than you. It's like, all right, let's get the egos out the way. Let's just teach some people some simple methods. So I did a big homegrown summit where I got over 40 different growers, like Ed Rosenthal, Tommy Chong came out, Montrose. I believe you actually did a show with him on terpenes. So we came out and we taught people from different methods on how to grow at home a clean, amazing cannabis. And the goal with that then is I'm gonna start a membership and a course that's teaching people how to grow a certain method. And there's 1,000 different methods. But giving people a good method how to grow at home and just targeting home growers. So I'm constantly trying to think, again, what can I do in the meantime until I'm able to get that state license? And that's pending until the city of Detroit, because we're located in Detroit. It's pending until the city of Detroit actually creates an ordinance that will allow recreational businesses. It did create an ordinance. And then it got sued because they created an ordinance that was based on social equity. They actually tried to give people who were disproportionately affected by the war on drugs a leg up, which is a good thing, but not good for other people who have other agendas. So
correct. Now you were the first POC dispensary owner in Michigan. What's that mean? What's a POC dispensary?
That was funny. I was Googling that myself, but it's person of color. Because I saw an article and they tagged me as the first, because I was the first really that Greener Grow collective. I was after starting the delivery service, there really wasn't any collectives. And people use the word dispensary just because it's a common term of a place that you can go and get cannabis. But yeah, I was the first really Black person to come out in the open with a medical dispensary / collective. But there's problem, sometimes when you're first, it's not the best thing because you end up getting raided. So
right. So now, do you? You no longer have that, or you no?
No, yeah, because that was the raid.
Gotcha.
And then I ended up moving to Detroit to continue to operate. And then I ended up having 2 locations, and then one location did not, which is the G3, did not meet the zoning because the city came in and started to regulate. Because there's over 300 stores just in Detroit. It started getting crazy. So the city came in, not raiding everyone. They did everything respectfully. The city came in and said that we're going to zone where these places can go. So naturally, I only had one store. And then that store I had to shut down because I got denied for the state license. So I pivoted to the private club.
Okay, so right now you're in the private club business waiting to get another license to have a dispensary?
To have a consumption lounge or private event license where I could do events based cannabis, whether it's
That's right.
in comedy shows, whether it is like a brunch, whether it's private dinners. Yeah, so just cannabis events is where
And
I'm
you can
very,
consume cannabis during that event.
yeah.
Gotcha. Well, my friend, I mean, what's it like in Michigan now for for minorities who are trying to get into business?
It's right now, man, I'm gonna try to say this in right now, a lot it's about timing. Right now, I would say it's a good time to get into the industry here in Michigan. The rules are a little bit more lax as far as applications. However, the real estate is scarce. I'm sorry, the real estate is scarce, meaning you can now qualify and get a state license for a recreational applicant. Meaning, now that we're adult use, that they're not counting marijuana offenses against you. They're not saying that you need to have $300,000 in your account anymore. So the rules have the barrier to entry for the adult use has lowered. However, even if you got approved as a person or a business, you still got to find a location. And
Gotcha.
then that's the hard part right now here in Michigan is finding the location, because I would say about 80% of the municipalities here still opted out, because you have the ability to opt out of having adult use or medical use. So some have had just medical, which that barrier is still too high. And then many have still opted out of adult use at the moment. So you can get approved now as a business or an applicant, but doesn't mean you're going to find the real estate, if that makes sense.
Gotcha. And again, you say 80% of people have opted out. Does that mean that in a state where adult use is legal, you could still be busted for using?
Well, no. Still in adult opted out, meaning for commercial business.
For commercial business.
Yes.
But
So
I can consume someplace, I just can't buy it. That's
yes, for our adult use, you can have 2.5 ounces anywhere. Okay, they do want to be locked in and closed if you're driving with it. You can have 2.5 ounces on you, and you can have up to 15, or I believe 15 ounces out in your house. And there's like an unlimited amount of cannabis you can actually have in a safe. If and you can grow 12 plants per household for adult use. This is not medical. This is adult use. Now, where you can consume is only in a private residence. You still can't do it in a public. You can't be at a public park. You can't, be in the streets. It's not like New York has a rule to where you could consume just anywhere where you can smoke tobacco.
Correct.
In New York. But in Michigan, you cannot consume in a public place. It has to be in a private place.
And then have they adjusted the laws for extracts, edibles, tinctures, those kinds of things?
Yeah, so they made that in the initial draft. They learned their lesson from the brownie case. So they made rules to how much edibles you can have, how much concentrates that you can have. Yep, for adult use. So there's 2 rules now. There's two lanes. You got the medical lane here in Michigan, and you have the adult use.
So now, I mean, so what you're looking forward to now, possibly getting your own licenses so that you can try to go back into this business again? Or by this time, man, I think I would have probably thrown my hands up and said, the hell with this shit there.
You know what, Montel? I'm gonna start a talk show. I need your help, man.
There you go.
No,
There you go.
no. So as of right now, I'm thinking of ways. I got the Cannabis Therapy Network. That's more of a educational platform. So I'm doing that to build the audience, and then be able to right now specialize in non-plant touching businesses up until the point that I could get a license. So I still, yes, I have the hope for the license. I have the private club, but who knows, right? I'm still waiting on the city. So in the meantime, I still got the homegrown. We got the homegrownweedsummit.com. We do that summit every single year where we have 45 different growers come together and teach techniques on how to grow from A to Z good cannabis. And then also I have the homegrown membership, the homegrown course. And then also I have the craft hemp box. So the Craft Cannabis Club, hemp is federally legal. We actually ship out hemp boxes every single month. So we actually have products that we have people journal the use I actually have a journal company called Tiggity. I know, right? I have
Mhm.
ADD as an entrepreneur. I have a I have a journal brand to where, because I feel like indica sativa is fake news. It doesn't really tell you how
Yeah,
a
it's
plant's
big.
gonna make you
Right.
feel. Yeah. So so this journal allows people to give real feedback based upon how plants affect you. And then we take that information, and that's how we recommend products in our hemp boxes. So we ship out hemp boxes now across all 50 states. So the Craft Cannabis Club has a box subscription side of it where we ship out hemp boxes, because
And you
that's
can charge for this, of course.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
50 bucks a month. Yep, 50 bucks a month. You get a box that's worth 75 to 100 bucks.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Well, my goodness, my friend. Were you thinking about writing a book?
I don't know, man. I guess this is really the first time I'm really talking about my story. So I guess hopefully it's making sense.
Oh, it made a lot of sense, and it makes a lot of sense for you to go ahead and put this on paper, man, so people can understand. This is a movie in itself.
Yeah. I appreciate, and I thank you for even just listening, man, and being intrigued, and being a shoulder to actually talk to, man. Just being an ear.
Well, look, I gotta tell you, I know that our listeners have just been thrilled with what you've been able to share, and I look forward to talking to you some more, man. In the future, I mean, we're almost out of time, but I got to tell you, anything else you want to add?
Ah, man. You know, just perseverance. Um,
You are
perseverance.
clearly. I bet if I open up a Webster's dictionary and look in it and look up the word perseverance, your face is there.
It's and believe me, I've this there's I've leaned on God a lot throughout this entire scenario. I've grown a lot. My mind has grown a lot. My attitude has grown a lot. So I look at it now as not, oh, whoa, what has happened to me, or why this happened to me, but more, why is this happening for me? So those simple mind shifts has helped me grow, and I've definitely became more selfless than selfish. And my mind is more set on how can I, like all these brands is more of how can I serve people better, more than looking at how people can serve me. So I think, if you want to follow what I'm doing, I mean, I got the Cannabis Therapy Network.org, Cannabis Therapy Network.org. Again, that's like the mother of all the brands. And then from there, you can find different brands. It's a free membership where we get monthly content on how to consume cannabis, how to dose cannabis, kind of like what same thing you're doing, Montel. Just
Right.
a lot of education is the key
The
to help.
key.
Yes.
The
To
key.
and
Look, my friend, I want to have you back. I really do. I mean, we can chop it up, on a myriad of topics. So I would love to have you back. And I got to thank you for sharing today, man. And I wanted to plant the seed for you, man. You need to really sit down and talk to somebody about writing this book, because I think there's a movie behind what you're talking about. You know what I mean? And people need to understand the journey that so many have been through, especially even after we claim that, we're now woke. We are less woke than most people think we are, right?
agree, agree,
Unbelievable.
agree, agree.
That's right.
And on that note, man, I think, I mean, the main mission is to awaken people's consciousness of the truth of cannabis, and that thing saying that we're woke is like, I mean, do you really see? Because
No,
this is more than, I mean, I could have just been another statistic, fam. I mean, I could have got out of jail, go back. Now I'm in the streets. Like they almost created a criminal out of thin air, and I didn't
right.
want to go down that path. So it's I could be your son, I could be your brother, I could be your dad. I mean, it's whether you are smoking cannabis or not, whether you like cannabis or not. At the end of the day, this is just a plant, and no one should be going to jail. Their assets forfeited, their lives turns upside down over a plant that was all rooted in lies to begin with.
Correct. Absolutely, my friend. Well, thank you so much, Earl Carruthers, for being a part of the show today, sir.
Thank you.
And again, like I said, you always have a home here on Let's Be Blunt with Montel. And if you want to team up sometime to do some educational things through your network, let me know. I'd love to be a part of it. You take care of yourself. You stay well. And I want to make sure all of our viewers out there, again, let everybody know Earl's story is here on Let's Be Blunt, because it needs to be told and it needs to be shared. Thank you so much. Absolutely, sir. Stay safe, stay well. Be well now. All right, brother. Thanks for joining me on Let's Be Blunt with Montel. Please make sure you're subscribed and hit the bell to be notified when new episodes post each week. We'd love to hear your feedback also, so please send us your comments.